I don't know about the rest of you guys, but the women in my family are a hell of a lot smarter than the men in my family. Clap for that, folks. You're going to see Europe joining NATO. I believe history will reflect it was the right thing to do, including the withdrawal.
Joe Biden's farewell addresses are getting disturbing. So last night he gave his farewell address from the Oval Office to the American people, where he issued a stark and grim warning for the future. And I'm going to show you all that and the mainstream media's reaction to it. But tonight he gave his farewell address to the military as commander-in-chief, where he proceeds to insult the soldiers, including forcing them to clap and cheer for his woke DEI initiatives. I'm not kidding. I don't know how he can stand there in front of these people in uniform who lay their lives on the line to defend our nation and make them celebrate and applaud a policy that lowers their capability. But before we get into this, if you could take a second to like, share, and subscribe, you know I would greatly appreciate it. But now let's get into Biden insulting the military by celebrating the withdrawal from Afghanistan like it was some massive success, and also exposing to the military that they have a brain-dead commander-in-chief, as he says Europe should want to join NATO. Watch.
When I ask you to end our nation's longest war, it rose to the occasion, evacuating Americans, allies, and our Afghan partners, accomplishing the largest airlift in military history, and ending a war with the same courage that defined American service in Afghanistan for over 20 years. I believe history will reflect it was the right thing to do, but I know it was hard. After decades of losing your brothers and sisters, including the withdrawal, the pain was still real. And it was for me as well. Putin has failed to take Kyiv, failed to make large territorial gains, and failed to break NATO. As a matter of fact, when I spoke to him on the phone, he talked about he wanted us to be the Finland of Europe. And I pointed out to him at the time, for real, that you're not only get the Finland of Europe, you're going to get the Finlandization, not of Europe. You're going to see Europe joining NATO.
I hope people never forget how disastrous the withdrawal from Afghanistan was. It was years ago, so it's easy to slip the mind. But let's not forget that hundreds of service members were wounded, 13 died. There was video of people trying to grab onto airplanes leaving and falling onto the tarmac. It looked like a scene from a zombie movie where the entire airport is surrounded and they're closing in and we just leave in the nick of time. There is not one logical reason why any single U.S. service member should have been injured in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. There is not one reason why we left $75 billion of military equipment for the Taliban to seize. And then when he tried to detail his phone conversation with Vladimir Putin, I can easily understand why Putin decided to invade Ukraine. If you saw how we withdrew from Afghanistan 6 months earlier, and then you have Joe Biden not remembering that Europe's already a part of NATO, if you're Vladimir Putin, you have no reason to believe your actions are going to have any consequences militarily. And I know it's easy to just brush it off and say Joe Biden misspoke. He always does that. But that's the point. It's okay if your grandma isn't as sharp as she once was and sometimes stumbles over her words or forgets what she's saying. But the president of the United States needs to be sharp and lucid, always. It's insulting to the military when your commander-in-chief is brain dead. He's a walking corpse. And instead of doing the right thing for the American people and getting them out of there, the Democrats just wanted to hold on to power by any means. They risked the well-being of the citizens and they risked the well-being of the military by not having a competent person in charge. Now, this is where it gets shameful. Joe Biden is saying how proud he is of all of his DEI initiatives that have infiltrated the military. And after he's done listing off his accomplishments, he literally forces the service members there to clap and applaud for it, which leads to this awkward moment. Watch.
We brought veterans' homelessness to record lows, made historic changes in the military justice system, which has reduced the rates of sexual assault for the first time in nearly a decade. We ended the ban on transgender service. We took landmark steps to create more economic opportunities for military spouses. We expanded opportunities for women in combat roles. And I'm proud to have appointed the first woman as a service chief in the history of this country. Clap for that, folks, because she deserves it. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but the women in my family are a hell of a lot smarter than the men in my family.
That one clip illustrates how void of logic and common sense these woke policies are. Why should military service members be thrilled that now transgenders can fight beside them? These are people who clearly have something wrong with them. And at a time of battle in a high-stress environment, the last person I want next to me is somebody chalked up with the opposite sex hormones. And the same thing goes for his initiative to try to get women in combat positions. You think that if you announce to a company of tough, rugged, battle-tested men that 10 women are coming to fight beside them, do you think they're all looking at each other and saying, yes, now we're more lethal than we were just a second ago. Now we have a better advantage in combat. Now the enemy is screwed because we have these 10 ladies here. There was a hand-to-hand combat fight that was going viral between a Russian and a Ukrainian soldier. It was a fight to the death, a knife fight. And it showed for a lot of people who really don't get a glimpse into that kind of environment just how deadly and ruthless warfare is. If you're a man and you come across another man in a knife fight, it's like a 50-50 chance, maybe. If you're a woman and you come across a man in a knife fight, when we're talking military trained men and women here, your chance of success is virtually zero. So why would we subject women to enter an environment where they're at a supreme disadvantage, all in the name of diversity? I don't even know why this is a controversial opinion. The biological and physical differences between men and women are so drastic, especially when you're talking about high physical demanding, laborious jobs. Now let's move on to Biden's farewell address to you, to me, the people. This farewell address is pure projection, and every time Joe Biden lobbies an accusation, just hear it as a confession of his own wrongdoings. He issues a stark warning to us about the rise and the concentration of power at the top and warns us of the terrible, terrible oligarchy, which coincidentally sounds like a pretty cool rap name for Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Watch.
I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous concentration, and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. The dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before. More than a century ago, but the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy, just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had to.
It's so rich, no pun intended, that he's attacking Trump for having Elon Musk support him as if it's some oligarchical government. Kamala Harris and the Democrats literally raised $1.5 billion to Donald Trump's $300 or $400 million. And if she lost the popular vote, do you think that came from the people? Of course not. The Democrats' rich donors are the ones who unilaterally made the decision to kick Biden off the ticket and reinstall Kamala Harris as their puppet. Even after all the newfound support Donald Trump has gotten with the tech billionaires, there are still 2 billionaires who are Democrats to every one that's a Republican. A majority of people who make over $500,000 a year are Democrat-leaning. That's why their policies weren't focused on helping the average person or couldn't even relate to the average person. They were more concerned with luxury issues that made them feel morally superior, like DEI and critical race theory. George Soros, a diehard Democrat supporter, is infamous for his dark money involvement in politics across the world. He is largely responsible for the open border policies that we saw. He is largely responsible for the soft on crime DAs plaguing all of our major cities. Joe Biden has given close to $400 billion in military aid to Israel and Ukraine, And most of that money, if not all of it, goes back into the military-industrial complex. The Democrat Party is in love with the military-industrial complex, and that is an industry that's profits are directly coordinated with government action. So they have a huge vested interest in participating in shifting political decision-making. But now that you lost, it's beware of the oligarchy. Liberal organizations like the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, all funded and participated in by wealthy elite people with the mission of creating a one world government. Why? Because they're obsessed with control. Now let's listen to Joe Biden talk about what he thinks is an existential threat to our democracy: the tech industrial complex. Watch.
You know, his farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power.
You see, social media companies were all good for him when they were doing his bidding, suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story, suppressing COVID vaccine info, suppressing and censoring any viewpoints that Joe Biden didn't like. The stance that these Democrats have is so authoritarian, it's so fascist, it should scare everybody. Them being the sole entities to determine what is fact, what is true, is dangerous. They would love nothing more than for their mainstream media apparatus to solely determine what the narrative is. We wouldn't have this distrust if they hadn't proven time and time again that they are willing to lie and label things that are completely accurate misinformation. That is the playbook of every authoritarian leader in history. It's not like authoritarians were like, okay, say your piece. Yeah, okay, that's a really great point, but let's get them out of here. No, their psyops worked by trying to be the sole purveyors of the truth and labeling anything that discredited them as false information. So while people on the right are willing to have a conversation and disagree and have discourse, people on the left don't do that. They just suppress, they just silence, they cancel. It really is concerning that Democrats are so against social media companies becoming these free, open places of dialogue and speech. They just want it to be echo chambers in which ideas that they deem acceptable are allowed to be discussed. Now let's listen to Joe Biden talking about all the changes that he wants to see in government, including banning stock trading for members of Congress, which I think was a subtle shot to Nancy Pelosi since she helped get him out of the presidency. Watch.
We must reform the tax code, not by giving the biggest tax cuts to billionaires, but by making them begin to pay their fair share. We need to get dark money. That's that hidden funding behind too many campaigns contributions. We need to get it out of our politics. We need to enact an 18-year time and term for the strongest ethics reforms for our Supreme Court. We need to ban members of Congress from trading stock while they're in the Congress. We need to amend the Constitution to make clear that no president is immune from crimes that he or she commits while in office.
This statement deserves the same rebuttal that we gave Kamala Harris, but on steroids. We told her, okay, all this stuff sounds great. Why weren't you doing it the last 4 years? Joe Biden, why weren't you doing any of this the last 50 years? You can't expect us to believe that these are things that are important to you when you're saying them with 4 days left to go in your presidency. You had all this time to fight for all these changes. Not once did we hear any of these things from you on the campaign trail. I don't know if maybe he's trying to set the stage for what the future of the Democrat Party can be about with these last ideas, but I definitely saw the stock trading one as a definite jab to Nancy Pelosi. But let's get into some of the mainstream reactions to Joe Biden's farewell address. First off, we have Joy Behar on The View, basically going full olive oil and going, "My hero," to Joe Biden. Watch.
I miss him already. I do too. I miss him. He's a good person. You know, he spent the last 50 years caring about the country. This other one spent 50 years scamming everybody, you know, and trying to stay out of jail. You know who I'm talking about. You know, I really miss Biden. I feel like we were safe. Like, I didn't have to worry. Was everything going to blow up? I could live my life while he was there. Now, every day I wake up and I worry, what is this guy going to do next? Yeah. And these oligarchs, can I just say one more thing and then I'll shut up?
No. You don't have to shut up.
They need to start shelling their money out. These guys, Bezos and Musk, they give it to Trump. Yeah. Do they think that they're going to live forever, these people? You know, everybody dies. I hate to break it to them, but you are not going to live forever. According to the World Food Program, we could end world hunger by 2030 with $40 billion. That's all it would take.
First off, if ending world hunger had a price tag of $40 billion, every single country in the world could pitch in a few $100 million and it would get solved instantly. You know why that hasn't happened? Because that's not accurate. Second off, she exposed what I've always thought about these Trump deranged people, that they're legitimately scared and fearful of Donald Trump. They go to sleep, they check under the bed, they check their closet, they leave the nightlight on because Donald Trump might get them. The fact that she said she feels safe when Joe Biden was in charge shows the true disconnect between these out-of-touch elitists and the rest of us. While the open border was causing problems for everybody, making everybody feel less safe, 2 new wars starting that could easily get the US involved into a world war, could get our troops involved, our men and women involved, and she feels safer? And what is this idea that Joe Biden for the last 50 years has been fighting for people and been this altruistic person? Ask any lifelong Democrat about Joe Biden. They have nothing but bad things to say about this guy. So I don't understand where he became Jesus Christ reincarnated. Now let's listen to what Joy Reid thinks about this speech and her enlightened take that I'm sure she's going to give. Watch.
One of the other pieces of news, Rachel mentioned him, Biden making news. He said we should ban members of Congress from trading in stock while in office. One of the sort of dirty little secrets is the oligarchy was already here. Like, America has sort of been hurtling toward oligarchy from the very beginning, when it was a few plantation owners and everyone else couldn't vote, right? Even, you know, white men without land couldn't vote. And we've been sort of trying to pull ourselves away from it. And the 20th century, which is the century that so offends Leonard Leo and Sam Alito and others. The 20th century was the era, the American century, when America pulled itself back from this notion of oligarchy to an incredible extent, invented a middle class. The things President Biden was talking about in that first 9 minutes, those are the things that the 20th century built when we beat back the robber barons and beat back the trust and established an income tax, which didn't exist until the 20th century, established women's rights, civil rights, immigrant rights. That's the 20th century. And these oligarchs, they've always been there. Who do you think was paying for, Rush Limbaugh? He was a very wealthy man. Fox is owned by an oligarch. Who do they think is funding the Ben Shapiro and other podcasts? The oligarchy's been hidden in the background the whole time. And Biden is this pivot president as America is hurtling towards sort of falling in love with these rich tech gods, these tech bros. Then you have Biden sort of sandwiched in the middle of Trump. And Trump trying to go the oligarch way the first time with some hurdles, and then Biden offering this small pivot where suddenly labor is getting wins, right? Where he's standing on picket lines, where you're suddenly seeing unions come back, and you're seeing him say, no, we're going to build our bridges, our roads, stuff that regular folks can enjoy. You have this pivot, and then we're going back. He is that wedge that was between us and an oligarchy we've been hurtling toward for a very long time.
I love how she admits that the oligarchy has been there, that dark money, rich people have been funding politicians since forever. But now all of a sudden, it's an existential crisis. Tell me, what has Elon Musk or any of the other tech bros done for Donald Trump that other billionaires have not done for the Democrat Party? It's because Elon Musk is open with his support of Donald Trump and trying to make America great again. So they're using that as a way to take a step back and say, oh, well, no, see, we've never done it because our billionaires don't come out and they announce it. So it doesn't happen on our side, but look over there, Elon Musk is doing it. And then she tries to make the argument that Joe Biden is some sort of labor president when he was rejected. His policies were rejected. His vice president trying to run on his accomplishments was rejected by the middle class. The Democrats got the least amount of labor union endorsements that they've ever gotten. Working class people outright voted for Trump. It's all the pompous elites who are richer, who think that they're smarter, who think that they're better, more morally superior than everybody else who supported the Democrats. They're so upset that the tech platforms are getting behind a free speech candidate. Anybody who's opposed to that should legitimately concern you. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. We got 4 more days, baby, until Donald Trump is president. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.